Good day everyone. My name is Anami E. Akudisin. So, I'm a Group 1 members. So, the topic is all about political environment of international marketing. So, what is a political environment na international marketing? In Tagalog is ay tumutukoy sa mga patakaran, regulasyon, at mga aspeto ng pamahalaan na maaaring makakapekto sa operasyon at negosyo ng mga kumpanya sa ibang bansa. Kasama rito ang mga patakaran sa kalakal, pagbabago sa taripa at regulasyon sa pag-import at pag-export, patakaran sa pamumuhunan at iba pang mga aspeto ng pampulitikang klima na maaaring makakapekto sa pagpapatakbo at tagumpay ng isang negosyo sa pandaigdigang merkado. So next, introduction. The political environment of international marketing entails understanding the impact of governmental policies, regulations, and relationships between countries on businesses operating across borders. It encompasses factors such as trade agreement, tariffs, political stability, legal frameworks, and ideologies that influence market entry and operations and strategies. Navigating this complex landscape is essential for companies to adapt to diverse political climates and effectively compete in global markets. So next, there are three types of objectives. First is types of government. Second is management and measurement of political risk. Third is supranational and international institutions. They have types of government. So first is democracy. So democracy is a system where the power and authority to govern are vested in the hands of the people. So which is, example is, naatay karapatan bilang tao or bilang mamamayan sa ating bansa na pumili na kagaya ng pagbuto. Natay karapatan na pumili ng dapat ibuto, which is mauna ang example sa democracy. So next is socialism. So socialism refers to a political economic system where the means of production, distribution, and exchange are owned or regulated by the state or the community as a whole. Isa sa example ani is ang pagbibigay ng libreng serbisyo sa mga mamamayan tulad ng libreng edukasyon, libreng pangangalaga sa kalusugan, at iba pang mga serbisyong panlipunan na pinansyal na suportado ng pamahalaan. Isa na sa halimbawa ng socialism. Next is theocracy. So theocracy is a system where religious leaders or religious institutions hold the ultimate authority and religious laws and principles govern the society and its laws. Sa theocracy naman, ang halimbawa nito is ang pamahalaan ng Iran, kung saan ang mga leader ng relihiyon, particular na ang mga Muslim na mga pari, ay may malaking impluwensya sa pagpapatakbo ng bansa at paggawa ng mga batas base sa mga prinsipyo ng Islam. And next is oligarchy. So oligarchy refers to a system where power and influence are concentrated in the hands of a small, privileged group of individuals of families. Sa oligarchy naman, ang halimbawa nito ay ang pamahalaan ng Russia. Noong ilang panahon kung saan ang mga malaking negosyante at mga miyembro ng oligarkiya ang may malaking kapangyarihan at impluwensya sa pamahalaan at ekonomiya ng bansa. Isa po na sa example sa oligarchy, which is ang Russia. Next is colonialism. So, colonialism refers to the practice of a country extending its control over other territory or people for economic, political, and social reasons. Sa colonialism naman, ang halimbawa nito ay ang pamamahalaan ay makita sa mga tulad ng pananakop ng Espanya sa ating bansa. Noong ika-16 hanggang 19 na siglo kung saan ang mga dayuhang kolonyal ang namamahala sa pamahalaan ng isang teritoryo at nagpatupad ng kanilang mga batas at patakaran na nakapinsala sa lokal na populasyon. Ang Espanya jud ang pinaka namahala sa panahon ng ating bansa. Next is aristocracy. So, aristocracy is a political system where power and authority are vested in a small group of privileged individuals or families who are typically distinguished by wealth, social status, or noble lineage. Sa aristocracy naman, ang halimbawa nito ay ang panahon ng feudalismo sa Europe noong Middle Age, kung saan ang kapangyarihan at pribilehiyo ay nakalaan lamang sa mga aristokrata o mga miyembro ng mataas na lipunan tulad ng mga baron, dukis, at iba pang mga nobility. Ang kanilang mga pamilya ang namumuno at nagpapasya sa mga patakaran ng lipunan at pamamahala or pamahalaan. Next is totalitarianism. So, totalitarianism refers to a system where the state exercises total control over every aspect of public and private life, leaving no room for individuals' freedoms or opposition. Isa sa mga halimbawa sa totalitarianism sa government ay ang sa panahon ng rehimeng Nazi sa Germany noong panahon ni Adolf Hitler. So, mas kilala siya bilang Hitler. Sa ganitong sistema, ang kanyang pamahalaan ay may lubos na kontrol sa lahat ng aspeto ng buhay ng mamayan mula sa politikal, ekonomiya, kultura at lipunan. Ang mga karapatan at kalayaan ng mga mamayan ay maliit na pinipigilan ng lubusan. So, dili jud ka basta-basta nga na kay mo kasani tanan nga tanan nga dapat nimo isulti, which is dili na masulti kay tungod wala gyapon kay karapatan nga mo suway sa pamumuno ni Adolf Hitler or mas higpit siya mamumuno. Next is communism. Sa communism, it refers to a political and economic ideology based on the principles of common ownership of property and the absence of social obsess where goods and services are distributed according to need. So, halimbawa ng communism is ang China. Sa ilalim ng pamumuno ng Partidong Komunista ng China, sa sistema ng komunismo sa China, ang pamahalaan ay nagmamay-ari at nagpapatakbo ng halos lahat ng malaking industriya at yaman ng bansa. Mayroon ding kontrol at partido sa mga aspeto ng ekonomiya at lipunan. At ang pagpapabahagi ng yaman ayon sa pangangailangan ng bawat isa ay isa sa mga pangunahing layunin. Gayunpaman, ang kasalukuyang sistema ng China ay may mga elementong kapitalismo at hindi naganap na communist sa kanyang orihinal na anyo. And next is monarchy. So monarchy refers to a system where a single individual, usually referred to as a monarch, holds supreme authority and serves as the head of state for life or until abdication. So, halimbawa naman dito is ang pamahalaan ng United Kingdom, kung saan mayroong isang monarka nagpapatakbo bilang pinuno ng estados. Kasalukuyan ay isa itong si Queen Elizabeth II, ang naghahari sa United Kingdom. Bagaman mayroong parlamento at demokratikong proseso sa bansa, ang monarka ay mayroong paring symbolic at seremonyal na kapangyarihan at impluwensya sa ilang aspeto ng pamahalaan. So next is military dictatorship. So military dictatorships is a system where power and concentrated in the hands of military leaders who govern the country without civilian oversight or democratic process. So, halimbawa sa military dictatorship sa government ay ang sa pamahala ni Ferdinand Marcos sa Pilipinas noong dekada 70 hanggang 80. Sa ganitong uri ng pamumuno, ang kapangyarihan ay kontrolado ng isang militar na pinamumunuan ng isang general o isang pangkat ng mga general. Ang batas militar ay pinatupad upang pigilan ang kalayaan ng pamahayag at mga karapatang sibilang mamamayan. So, that's all my report.
Good morning, everyone. Now, I'm going to report the management and measurement of political risk. First is letter A, pre-investment planning, and we have 4 policy options. This includes avoidance or no risk, insurance, shift risk, negotiate environment, and structure the environment. So first, I'm going to discuss the avoidance or no risk. It refers to the strategy of completely avoiding exposure to political risk by not engaging in activities or investments that could be affected by political events or decisions. So example is multinational corporation is deciding not to invest in a country with a story of political instability or where the legal and regulatory environment is unpredictable. Next is the insurance. Insurance or shift risk. It helps business and investors mitigate financial losses resulting from political events or decisions. So it effectively shifts the risk of political instability or government actions to an insurance provider. So next is letter C, negotiate environments. So negotiate environments, it refers to the context in which negotiations between businesses or investors and political stakeholders take place. So meaning, this environment is influenced by various factors, including the political, economic, social, and cultural dynamics of a particular country or region. So, the last is the structure, the investments. It refers to the various factors and elements that influence how political risks are identified. Analyze and address within an organization. Internal structure involves ang decision-making process and risk management team. So next, letter B is operating policy. We have 5 post-investment policy options. First is planned divestment, short-term profit maximization. The third is changing the benefit or cost ratio. And the fourth is developing local stakeholders. And the last is adaptation. Create a post-confiscation management contract. So first is a planned investment. Involves allocating resources towards strategies such as political risk analysis, diversification of operation across regions, obtaining political risk insurance. Kani nga investment is nag-aim to mitigate the potential negative impacts of political instability or regulatory changes on business operations and investments. So next is the short-term profit maximization. Prioritizing immediate financial gains over long-term stability when operating in politically volatile environments. So this involves making decisions that yield higher profits in the short-term run. So next is changing the benefit or cost ratio. This includes political stability, typically reduce risk and increase the benefit cost ratio or business operating cost against long-term business operating in those regions. So another one is long-term and short-term perspective must weigh short-term cost against long-term benefits, assessing whether potential gains justify the initial investment and engaging risk management efforts. So, ang benefit sa cost ratio in managing political risk is subject to dynamic changes influenced by a range of internal and external factors that affect a company's operations and strategic decisions. And the fourth is developing local stakeholders. When we say stakeholders, it is the people in the like for example, government officials like mayor, like mga and community leaders or like poroc presidents, like then business associations, to understand their perspective, concerns, and interests within our community. So, in addressing political risk, it must include initiatives, activities, like for example, building programs, stakeholder dialogues, and partnership will help in decision-making process, and the organizations can gain valuable insights, build trust, and mitigate potential conflicts. Another way of managing political risk is adaptation. So, adaptation means create a post-confiscation management contract. Involves adjusting business strategies and operations to effectively navigate and mitigate the impact of political uncertainty and instability. So adaptation means incorporating risk into business strategies. So, ang mga business strategies, this includes 3 strategies. First is local equity. First is local equity and debt. Second, and development assistance. And third is insurance. That's all for my report.
So good day everyone. Continuing sa report report. And my name is Mark Locamangyan and my topic is all about management and measurement of political risk in measuring political risk. So include two approaches. So, the measuring political risk, which is two approaches, and political stability first approaches. So mura na akong topic guys is mura na akong topic. So, measuring political risk. So, first is two approaches. So, the two approaches is includes country and firm. So, country-specific perspective, country risk analysis. So, the country-specific approach or country risk assessment, this approach evaluates political risk by analyzing factors specific to the country where the firm operates or intends to invest. So it involves assessing the political stability or kanang government effectiveness or kanang rule of law, regulatory environment or others involves ani nga assessing in the political stability. So in napo diha ang political environment analysis. So this involves examining the political landscape of country, including the political institution, government policies, hindi na siya mawala, regulatory framework, and historical political dynamics, understanding the political dynamics and potential risks associated with changes in government policies, leadership transition, political instability, and social unrest is crucial for assessing political risk at the country level. So the firm specific perspective, a more micro approach is firm specific approach is yung political due diligence, business continuity planning, political risk insurance, and diversification and risk hedging. So the political due diligence in the firm specific approach, conducting political due diligence on the firm itself involves assessing how political factors may impact its in operation or investments bana or project, and this this includes evaluating the firm exposure to political risks such as regulatory compliance, government relations, na di ang kanang permits or kanang license or licensing and permits and kana agreements or contractual. So understanding the firm, the political developments and disruptions is essential for managing political risk effectively. And business continuity planning, developing business continuity plans that address potential political risks and disruptions is critical for firms operating in volatile or politically sensitive environments. And political risk insurance na po ang yung political risk insurance can help protect firms against unforeseen political risk and provide financial or financial compensation in the event of adverse political events. So next is political stability or first approach measured by frequency of government changes, government durability. This approach focuses on the longevity and continuity of the government in power. Measures such as length of time a government has been in office, frequency of leadership changes or exam through election or cups, and the presence of stable institution can indicate political stability or long periods of stable governance without abrupt changes or interruptions suggest a higher level of political stability and level of violence. So, the political stability of level of violence can needed be assessed based on the level of violence within a society or political system. Now, here's how violence can be factors in measuring political stability. Wala nga ako sa na-appeal guys kay maroni ang nabutang sa PPT. Ikuha na ako sa level of violence na di ang civil unrest and protest. High levels of violence such as kana nagkakaroon siya ng war ba, such as riots, protests, and civil unrest can indicate underlying political tensions and dissatisfaction with the government or prevailing socio-economic condition. Persistent and widespread violence may signal instability within the political system as it reflects a breakdown in social order and governance. And yung political violence and conflict, isa na dito sa mga conflict with other states, no, yung na presence of political violence include armed conflict, yung nagkakaroon ng conflict sa mga army, insurgency, yung nagkakaroon na yung terrorism, and nagkakaroon na sila ng violence ba, and organized crime can significantly undermine political stability. Conflict-ridden regions often experience instability, weak governance, and disruptions of basic services, posing challenges to state authority and territorial integrity. And the number of armed insurrection. So, the number of armed insurrections counting number of armed insurrection can be a quantitative method to gauge political stability, as frequent of widespread insurrections often indicate underlying instability with a political system. So here's how the number of armed insurrection can be considered in assessing political stability, which is frequency and scale, geographical spread, duration, intensity, causal twist, displacement, government response and control, international attention and intervention, and long-term impacts. Yung long-term impacts is assessing the long-term impacts of armed insurrections on political, social, and economic dynamics is essential for understanding their implications for political stability. So, insurrections can have lasting effect on state institution, social cohesion, economic development, and regional stability, shaping the trajectory of a country political future. And lastly is conflict with others or with other states. So, political stability can be significantly affected by conflicts with other states, particularly if those conflicts escalate into warfare or have long-standing tension. Here's how conflict with other state or kanang ikuha lang nako kan unsay impact sa political stability ang conflict with other state, yung nagkakaroon ng escalation to war, geopolitical instability, diplomatic isolation, security threats, economic impact, and humanitarian crisis, and peace building and conflict resolution. And assessing the impact of conflict with other states on political stability requires a nuanced understanding of the underlying drivers, dynamics, and geopolitical context of the conflict, as well as their implication for domestic governance, regional security, and international relations. Diplomatic efforts to manage conflict, promote dialogue, and build cooperative relationships with neighboring states are essential for fostering political stability and regional security in conflict prone regions. So that's my topic, guys, and thank you. Proceed ta sa next reporter. Thank you.
I'm gonna report the economic factors. First is the indicators of political unrest. So political unrest is an issue between the political issue that cause unrest to the country. First is rampant inflation. So what is rampant inflation? Rampant inflation is, from the word rampant, it is a out of control inflation, meaning the inflation or the value of the money in, is lesser, meaning the more amount but the value of the money is decreasing. Like other countries, they have rampant inflation, which causes uh, political unrest. Next is balance of payment deficit. So what is that? So balance of payment deficit is, to simplify it, the country imports more products, services, or accommodations rather than exporting it. So mas daghan ta og gina-import from other countries than we export our own. So that causes the balance of payment deficits. Next is slowed growth of per capita GDP. So what this means is ang growth sa atong country is slow because of the example is yung katong there is less export but more imports. So hindi dili mapaspas atong growth kay we cannot provide on our own na export to mga products o mga commodities to the other countries, but we import more than we export. So that causes the slowed growth of per capita GDP. Next is subjective factors. So subjective meaning dili pa siya because it is subjective. First is general perception toward private enterprises. So the perception of na may relation ang political to the private enterprises which are owned by an individuals or stockholders. So there is the idea or the perception na mga political is related to those owned businesses or mga stockholders. Next is business environment risk index, or what we call BERI. So what is BERI? So it is a tool used to assess the potential risks and challenges that the business may face in a particular country or region. It provides like comprehensive analysis na maka-impact sa business environment such as political stability, economic condition such as political framework, legal framework, infrastructures, and social factors. So what is murag unsa idea niya? BERI is typically used by investors or multinational corporations and mga financial institutions para to evaluate the feasibility of conducting that business to a specific location. So more na siya studies na para to understood nila na this specific business would be like good or best for that area or that country. So so as what I have said, na siya, 'di ba? Tool to assess. So first is usefulness, how useful the business would be or unsay mga provide niya on that Next is an indicator of general level. Next is of political risk. Lastly is economic standpoint. So basically, siya, as what I have said, nag-study ni siya para maano sa mga investors to understand kung sa mga political risk, economic standpoint para to better understood kung mag-invest ba sila on some things, especially mga multinational para there an area because of that mga political stability, economic conditions, kung if that business will be good for that area. Next is political risk equals uncertainty over property rights. So some areas kay namang like government owned mo makakos siya political risk kay dili man tan areas in some countries or especially in our country na ma privately owned directly as ano, so na yung mga political risk kay some areas are private owned by the government or some official organization of the government. So next is capital flight. So what is capital flight? It is an inappropriate economic policies, expectations of devaluation, and high political risk. So first is inappropriate economic policies. So may mga policies in the economy na cause of capital flight. But understood, capital flight is the outflow of capital from a country due to negative monetary policies, meaning na maka-cause siya currency depreciation or mag-cause siya of trade na which causes low interest on the currencies na mag-cause ng mga itong rampant inflation na. Next is expectation of devaluation. So expectation of devaluation is like a decision that makes a currency lose its value. So like example, ang country na mag-loss ay ang value and ma-devaluate ang currency na to and cause siya depreciation on our country and also our currency. And lastly is the high political risk. High political risk is the potential of the political uh, unrest to be done that can cause to the effect or to the businesses because of the high political risk, which can cause uh, rampant inflation and the decrease of the exports and more on the imports of our country. So those are the examples of the that can cause the capital flight of high political risk. Thank you.
The micro approach firm. Specific perspective used in light of shortcomings of previous model. Number one, the weakness of political models assumes all firm faces the same risk. Number two, expropriation. Expropriation. A is highly selective. B, higher probability for extractive, and C are utility and financial financial industries. National and international institutions. Supranational institutions are those owned or established by governments of two or more countries. They are usually established by international treaties to pursue specified policy objectives and generally not subject to commercial law. So, supranational institutions, ito ay gidesign for gidesigned to promote cooperation and integration among their member of states to address common challenges that transcend national boundaries. Example ng supranational institutions ay ang European Union, which consists of 27 member countries in Europe. So ito ay, ang role nila is, before the role is, Ang EU daw ay may governing bodies such as European Commission and the European Parliament, which may authority sila to make decisions about sa issue ng trade, agriculture, and competition policy that affect all member states. International institutions, also known as intergovernmental organization or an international institution, is an organization that is established by a treaty or an instrument governed by national law and possessing its legal personality, such as the World Health Organization, International Union for Conservation of Nature, and NATO. So, ang international institution daw is established by a treaty or governed by international law, which gumagawa sila ng legal personality like ng United Nations, World Health Organization, at iba pa. So, ang role ng international institution is unlike sa supranational institution, ang international institution is they do not have authority to make binding decisions on their member states. In summary, supranational institutions have the power to make binding decisions on member states and often aim for deep integration and coordination among countries, while international institutions serves as the platform for coordination and cooperation but lack the authority to enforce binding decisions. That's all.